It would be the next morning that the police would be knocking on your door and take you to jail. And I've put a lot of people in jail for writing checks on closed accounts.
It's not a closed account. It's a closed check. And it's a private check.
No, that's not. No, you're wrong.
That's why we have to have that congressional record that states what she's sitting here saying, because it says it's a closed account.
Correct.
That's why we have to have that House record of what Jim Traficant actually said and see if this is what he actually said or this is someone's version that they added to that first paragraph.
One of the things on the document that I have from James Traficant is that some of the document has been altered in order to intentionally remove the truth from the files.
So we need to go back in and see what we can find and get it. If we can get a hold of Jim Traficant and actually get a hard copy off of him, this is what we need. Because, see, people were missing evidence of being able to come back in and really go after this. Because, like I said, we need a copy of the Chapter 11. Because according to the rules, it had to go through a court. It could not go through a presidential executive order first, then tell Congress, cover my butt, make me a law quick.
Rod, speaking of which, here I've got it right in front of me also on that one document where all, in 1933, Western states or Western countries were forced into bankruptcy, which makes it an involuntary bankruptcy. 74 years ago, the IRS was also incorporated on July 11th, 1933. So we got the IRS, we got the Federal Reserve, we got the bankruptcy, we got the acts, we got all of this. That is a conspiracy and acting in concert and collusion to commit bank fraud with the intent to overthrow the constitutional Republican form of government in this country by international bankers, which is particularly the Rothschilds, and they can kiss my backside. I'm that angry with this, that they intentionally overthrew this government. That makes them, and I hope they're listening, and I hope the feds are listening, and walk over there and take them out tomorrow, that they are international terrorists using threat and intimidation and murder and conspiracy to overthrow this form of government, which they have done.
All right, but again, you're talking this form, but let's also go include the other countries that they did the same thing to when they did this one.
That's right. And it all comes back to the Rothschilds and the Bank of England and the Bank of London, and then that goes back into the Queen and the King and back to the Vatican. The Federal Reserve, the IRS, the U.S. Treasury, the Queen of England, and the Vatican, and whoever Larry Moore and Curley are in whatever government offices back in the District of Columbia. Just drop a damn net over the whole damn D.C. Clean them all out. Get them all out of there.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, like we're sitting here saying, what we have got onto a one-track mind, United States, United States, United States, United States. We discovered it wasn't just the United States. This was a world attempt of the Federal Reserve, because you got to go back into these other countries. How many countries is under the Federal Reserve setup? And when they had to relinquish, like they did in 1917 in Germany, they had to relinquish their currency to take on the Federal Reserve. When they took on the Federal Reserve, did they have to lose their sovereignty and overthrow their own state constitution? This is something that we've never got into, we never discussed, because nobody's ever brought it up, nobody's ever thought about it, and we discovered here today there were other countries forced into receivership into the Federal Reserve when the United States did what it did. So this was a worldwide attempt, and this goes into that 1940 document that we pulled of the New World Order, because this was done in 1940, and 1933 is when they did all this.
1940, August 19th, that was Honorable Judge Thorkelson on August 19th, the Congressional Record of 1940, where they knew full well of the New World Order, and it had two teams playing against each other, the Jewish money changers and the English colonization. And when I cross-referenced both, I couldn't find the two teams anymore. They've already fused into one. But, Rod, on this 1933 year, most Western world nations were forced into bankruptcy. Forced into bankruptcy. Forced is the operative word. That indicates a hostile takeover. There's your threat, intimidation through the banks and through use of technology. Right here.
1944 is when they set up the International Monetary Exchange Fund with the governors. This was done in 44.
After the bankruptcy, which they could not have done.
This was done, after the bankruptcy. They did bankruptcy in 33, and in 44 they set up the International Monetary for the governors, which when they did that became the New World Order.
How could they set that up for the governors if they were in bankruptcy and Congress had already been dismissed and we were in a state of emergency?
This is how they set up the world in the country. So, people, this is not just the United States. This gets into a bigger realm of the world being involved in this.
And that comes back into the term espionage because of what they've done with this banking fraud. Because of what they have done and because of the dominoes effect, it has caused, and this is part of the elements of the crime of espionage, it has caused a damage to foreign nations. That's part of espionage, gathering, collecting, transmitting, or otherwise use of collecting information. And that's what they're doing. And it's caused a damage by their transmitting of their banking and investment in their securities, which part of the document I put out today is another issue. But they've caused a damage. Why? Because the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds, remember Rockefeller even made the statement thanking the major news media for keeping their promise of keeping all of this out of the limelight so that they could complete their task at hand. And that's raping and pillaging us internationally and making a profit doing it, and then giving us the bill.
I'm going to bring in Hailstone, then I'm going to bring in Busty because we're probably going to get into a different topic, which is fine. Hailstone, go ahead.
Yeah, did you know that James Traficant writes for the American Free Press? And he actually has some contact information in there. There's no phone number, but it says for donations of support, you can be sent to Tish, T-I-S-H, Traficant at 429 Main Street, Poland, Ohio, 44514. Also, the American Free Press has contact information. They're on the internet. It used to be called the Spotlight. Now they call it the American Free Press. And and one other thing was that you were talking about Muhammad or the Muslims earlier, and Muhammad was actually married to an elderly Catholic lady. And so this is how all this confusion comes in with the Muslims worshiping Mother Mary and acknowledging Christ. And anyhow, that's a whole other ball of wax. But yeah, he does have that contact information through the American Free Press paper.
Okay,
Thank you.
What I've ran into on some of this stuff is that this is going through somebody else, and they are monitoring and going through, and it's not going straight into them. So if you could contact them, and you've got my contact information, right?
Yes.
If you could contact him, have him contact me.
I'll give it a shot.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
Yep.
Well, on that Mother Mary issue, and they, what that gets into is back into these 1600 charters, and it defines in great detail that Mother Mary is actually the Holy Roman Catholic Church. So you need to read those charters to find out exactly what the language means. And I'll tell you what, if a lot of Catholics read these charters, they would be, because a lot of Catholics are extremely devout, and I don't hold that against them at all. What I hold against the Catholic Church is them misleading their congregation and not telling them the truth. And once the Catholics, and there are many, find out that they've been lied to as well, then there's going to be a major issue. And it will happen. It's not that if it happens, it will happen. It's a matter of when.
Well, like I said, with what we're exposing people, like I said, we're giving you a whole new line of thought and a whole new roll of evidence of what you may have not known. And like I said, you guys are sitting as grand juries in this stuff. You guys need to sit down and make decisions and look at this stuff and draw your own conclusions. It's not up to me to sit down and brainwash you or to sit here and say, this is the way it is. You're entitled to your free thought. All right, we got people out here that do not agree with what I'm saying. That's fine. They're entitled to their opinion. The thing of it is, they can't sit here and pick a piece apart. It's like I said here earlier at the beginning. Here we are on assembly line. You can't go someplace before the end and sit here and say, well, this is an automobile. It takes from the very beginning all the way through in order to set it up. And this is what we're setting up. We're setting up a picture. We're setting up the foundation, giving you an opportunity to look at new points, new avenues, new statutes that you never thought, case law that you never would give any consideration to, because one of the listeners and I, we sit down, we talk about the Pee Wee Herman, the Pee Wee case, coal miner's case. He said he's had it, but he's never made the connection because we didn't have the other pieces that allowed it to sit down and say, my God, now I understand what we're sitting here saying. I had this, but we did not understand what we had until we got into these other things.
Okay, well, going back to the manufacturing of a car on a conveyor belt. If you have every single person on that conveyor line doing their part and putting the right piece in at the right time in the right location, when that car comes off the end, I expect to drive off that lot in a brand new Rolls Royce, you know. But if a couple people are like, they're messing around, they're not there, they don't get the part, and well, whatever. The car will look really good when it gets up the end, but my part doesn't matter, you know. So the buyer goes up there and gets that car that doesn't run right because all the parts aren't there. What Rod and I are doing, what all of our other researchers are doing, we're showing you all of the parts to the car that have been missing all along and why the car doesn't run right. And the car is the United States of America, and it is not running. It's misfiring. It's all over the place. It's not going anywhere. Its fuel is not running through the engine. Its fuel injectors are clogged up. The carburetor's jammed, and it's missing all the nuts and bolts. Why? Because all the nuts are in Congress and Senate and in Washington, D.C. We need to get them out of there, put them back in the car, get the car running.
All right, but again, with what we're looking at on the same principle, the employees on the assembly line cannot go in and file for Chapter 11 against the manufacturer while the manufacturer has productivity and has material to run through the assembly line. The employees can't claim, Chapter 11, we're broke, we want to step down and file for a bankruptcy whenever the corporation has got all this stuff and all the people's got to do is go back and work. This is what the government did in 1933. They went back in and declared, we have no assets. We got no collateral. We have nothing of value whenever we had gold and silver, and they collected a whole bunch of it, and we don't know the amount that they've collected, because if they collected it at the price, they should have been able to pay off the debt. And with all the gold mines and coal and oil, they can't claim that they're insolvent whenever there was collateral all through this country.
Well, there's still...
We can't claim bankruptcy for the people.
They're still out there, especially in Canada, as we speak, and down in Africa. Watch the movie Blood Diamond. You know, what they're doing in Africa is they're raping the land there of the diamonds. In Canada, they're raping the indigenous people's land up there of the diamonds, the uranium, and the gold. They're raping everything. Why? Because the Vatican and these banks think they own it all. Really? Did they sign a contract with God? No.
All right, the thing of it is, it's like Jeanette and I were sitting here talking. We're not going to disclose who we were talking to, but they were talking about in their state starting up a bank in their own state. Okay, they go back in and use their natural resources. Well, Jeanette and I got into a conversation. Well, the charter says the king owns it. That may be, but the bottom line boils down to, if the people in the state started their own bank, the king and the Vatican is not going to come over here and say, well, wait a minute, we own the land, we own all the resources. You want to put this in writing? Because we kicked your butt across the sea once before, and we'll send you back. Because the moment you put it in writing that you own everything, you just proved the fraud of our entire country.
And I'm here to tell you, if they think that for 1 minute they'll come over here to this country and try to take from us, and they come over on the East Coast, I'll be standing on the beach waiting.
These are people. This is like I said, a whole new avenue of way of looking at what we have been told throughout the years of the Patriot movement. These are new avenues, new documentation of putting it to a picture instead of just looking at a single piece. This is what we're trying to do. I said, this is just the beginning. I'm trying to get more documentation. As I get it, we will get deeper and deeper into this.
It's like the Illuminati and the Bilderbergers. The reason that they're so quiet and secretive, first of all, Prince Bernhard or whatever is out of the Netherlands, okay, and that's where they started. The Bilderbergers is not the name of a person; it's the name of the Hotel de Bilderberger in the Netherlands. But the reason they're so secretive is because they said if the Americans knew what we were really up to, they would discover that they are anything but free. Okay, so you guys need to know what they've done to your parents, to your grandparents. They came over here through Ellis Island, unless you're an indigenous people. They came over here through Ellis Island to get away from religious persecution, to get away from oppression, to come over here for a free start when the banks got a hold of them and strangled them anyway.
You know, and this is why with this internet, this land rights and farming, because this is being hit internationally by us being broadcasting this stuff, and we have a lot of international people on the line that is listening. By having them on the line, understanding what we're sitting here saying, they start going back in and start doing some of the research on the website and start looking what we're talking about here, and they start realizing that they were brought into the fraud by the Bilderbergs, by the Rothschilds, and these people are hiding in their country. They're not going to be in their country very long before they start coming up short and coming up missing. Right now, they're over there because they're not safe over here.
Well, Jacob Rothschild has been on our website repeatedly, and this is for you, Jacob Rothschild. When you see me knocking on your door, it's too late.
Because, like I said, people, we have come a long ways from 20 people to where we are now hitting over 200, plus we have other radios broadcast, like Ghost Fighters radios bringing in. We have ham operators coming in. We've got this website where we're now pulling international people in. We are exposing, and it's all because of how we are doing it by laying it out. We're not laying out partial information. We're laying out step for step. Now, as we get new information, we'll add to it. We'll sit here and expand it out.
Well, also, Rod, some of the people that are coming on have their own blog sites, and we have a lot of listeners and a lot of readers that are putting links up to our blog site. And I also, like I said earlier, I have put your AIB community radio invitation up there. So, and a lot of readers are coming in from your chat line off of AIB radio as well. So it's vice versa. The blog is advertising AIB radio, and AIB radio is advertising the blog, and a lot of people are putting this up on their blogs as well too. So this is huge. And the other thing is that since there are so many countries that are listening and reading the papers, it's because they want to learn what's wrong also. They want to know what is wrong. Why isn't this car running right? They're looking for the answers too, folks.
And isn't the fact that they come back in with stupid American people? It isn't the fact that the American people were stupid. It's the fact that this stuff was hidden so well, and we was not able to discover it because we didn't have interconnection. And a few of the people out here that is out here doing the paperwork, they are patriots for profit, and some of these people aren't much different than the people we are fighting because they're sitting on half information.
Well, I'm just retired. I moved here to retire, and I've done everything but retire. But we've got a lot of people that are learning and listening, and they want to know the truth.
So, like I said, we're giving it out to you for you all to sit back, weigh it, look at it, draw your own conclusions, look at it from a fresh perspective, a new perspective. Give you a new point of view that you can sit back and say, you know what? I didn't realize all this. We didn't know all this was together. We knew about one or two of these documents, but we never thought about putting all this stuff together.
One of the documents I just put out the other day, just looking up Enron, by the time I was through, that paper was 265 pages long. And it's just getting hammered. It's just hammered. It cites the laws that Enron has violated, so I went in and got the laws, and like Rod says, I don't just put in a little bit, and some people, they only read like one paragraph or one sentence of a law. I put in the whole damn chapter 29. The whole thing, and it's like 23 pages of law. Why? Because I'm not going to take the chance of them crashing that whole website, and I can't get it tomorrow. So I take it all today. When I get evidence, I don't leave an out clause. I don't leave a loophole. When I have evidence, if I'm on your heel, it's too late for you because I'm not going to get off. And that goes for you too, Jacob Rothschild.
Because like I said, with what we pulled up on the bankruptcy, the moment you tie this into Title 12, 95A, 95B, you tie it into Title 12, 411, 412, 413, you go back in, tie this back into Volume 48, 1933, 1934, pages 1 through 112, now you're sitting down looking at a bigger picture of how this bankruptcy was done, who are the receivers in this sucker, who is responsible for the debt, and see, this is something that nobody ever bothered explaining or getting into. But
if you're going into the bankruptcy of 1933, and then they didn't have the United Nations till 1945, which coincidentally was the International Organizations Immunities Act of 1945, December 9th, but they've got the bankruptcy of 33, then you've got the Federal Reserve in 1913, the sinking of the Titanic in 1912, the secret meetings on Jekyll Island in 1910, and then you've got all of these, the Banking Act of 1863. Folks, these are not just, pull something out of the hat. These are planned acts that they had to get A and done in effect before they could do B. And these are done 25, 35, 50 years, 100 years in advance.